Many audience delegates have come, so I think we had better move on to the next session. So I would like to introduce other big boss, Professor Yasuhiro Koga. He is a former professor of the Department of Microbiology in Tokai University School of Medicine, and he was very famous for the probiotics. He's the president of the Japanese Society of Probiotic Science. Probiotic Science, yeah? JSPS. It's like JSPS is a Japanese Society for Promotion of Science. the same. Sometimes misunderstood. But yes, and he's very famous for the Lactobacillus gasseri science. The challenging to the Helicobacter pylori as well as other functional disease in the gut. So today he will talk about LPS activity in the gastric fluid and the improving effect of probiotics LG, Lactobacillus gasseri, 21 strain, possible involvement of LPS in the development of atopic gastritis. Could you please?
Okay. Thank you, Professor Sugi, for your very kind introduction. Actually, it's really a big stress to speak about the gastroduodenal diseases in front of Professor Sugano. But also it's a big chance in front of him. So later I want many comments and questions. The title of my presentation is LPS activity in the gastric fluid and improving effect of probiotic erythroid strain. By this presentation, I want to indicate possible involvement of LPS in the development of atopic gastritis. According to Korea pathway presented in 1995, the development of gastric cancer and ulcer after H. pylori infection is explained as follows. H. pylori infection causes gastric mucosal inflammation. Without eradication of H. pylori, mucosal inflammation lasts long time. And this pathological situation is called chronic gastritis. Chronic gastritis leads to gradual loss of acid-secreting parietal cells, which ultimately result in atrophy of mucosa. This situation is usually associated with inflammation, thus called atrophic gastritis. Atrophic gastritis is well known to have a high risk of progression to gastric cancer and gastric ulcer. This photo shows endoscopy of the gastric mucosa. The right image is atrophic mucosa. Compared with healthy mucosa, we can see small blood vessels under the mucosa due to thinning of gastric epithelial layer. In 2017, the prevalence of gastric cancers in Japan was about 130,000. And in 2018, the number of persons died of gastric cancers were about 44,000. As for the effect of eradication of H. pylori on the incidence of gastric cancers, firstly, the incidence of gastric cancers 1 year in the people who had H. pylori infection but without eradication was estimated to be around 0.5%. According to a retrospective cohort study titled Risk of Gastric Cancer in the second decade of follow-up after H. pylori eradication, the incidence of gastric cancer still remains as much as 0.35%. Moreover, if there was severe atrophic gastric mucosa at the eradication, the incidence of gastric cancer increased up to 0.67%. These report indicate that there is a high risk of gastric cancer even after the eradication of H. pylori. In 2021, Obayashi et al. Reported a clinical study titled Risk Factors for Gastric Cancer After the Eradication of Helicobacter pylori, evaluated based on the background gastric mucosa. In the study, they compared Group A patient who got early gastric cancer after successful H. pylori eradication and Group B patient without developing gastric neoplasm over 3 years after successful H. pylori eradication. As a result, the scores of inflammation for Group A got gastric cancer was significantly higher than those of Group B without gastric cancer. So they concluded that a continuous high level of inflammation of the background gastric mucosa may be a risk factor for gastric cancer onset after H. pylori eradication. So the next question is what factors induce mucosal inflammation although H. pylori has already been eradicated? About this inquiry, Su et al. Reported an article in 2020 titled Gastric Microbes Associated with Gastric Inflammation, Atrophy, and Intestinal Metaplasia 1 year after H. pylori eradication. And they found that bacteria associated with persistent inflammation after H. pylori eradication were Genera, Acinetobacter, Ralstonia, Actinobacillus, and Erwinia. Interestingly, those bacterial genera such as Acinetobacter, Ralstonia, Actinobacillus, and Erwinia all belong to gram-negative bacteria. So we paid much attention to to LPS, lipopolysaccharide, because LPS are major component of the cell wall of gram-negative bacteria induce carcinogenesis as well as inflammation. Recently, Miyata et al. In Professor Sugao's lab reported that LPS from non-H. pylori gastric bacteria stimulate IL-8 interleukin-8 production in gastric epithelial cells. These results suggested potential role of LPS in the gastric carcinogenesis as well as mucosal inflammation in the stomach even after eradication of H. pylori. So the aims of our study was to examine the LPS activity in the gastric fluid and what factors affect the LPS activity. For method, GX samples were obtained from outpatients who are undergoing upper GI endoscopy. The LPS activity was examined by assay kits including recombinant factor C or Livinus amebocyte lysate. Microbiota composition was analyzed by meta-60S method. As for the demographic data of the subject, mean age was 62 years old. Male-female ratio was 1.2. And among 158 subjects in total, 50 were atrophic gastritis and 30 were H. pylori positive. We first measured the bile acid concentration in the gastric fluid. This figure shows the correlation between the bile acid concentration and LPS activity in the gastric fluid using 136 GX samples. Although a considerable level of LPS activity was found in some GX samples, no significant correlation between bile acid and LPS was found. Next, we investigated correlation between the pH value and the LPS activity in the GF. The high LPS activity was detectable in the GF samples with pH more than 4. On the other hand, the GF samples with high acidity, pH was less than 2, the LPS activity was not detectable or very low. In accordance with J's result, Spearman's correlation coefficient demonstrated very close correlation between pH value and LPS activity in the GF samples. Actually, the correlation coefficient was, actually the R value was 0.87 using 136 samples in total. To know the origin of or to know the source of LPS activity in the GF samples, abundance of gram-negative and positive genera were compared in between strong acidity GF and saliva obtained from the same subject. Regarding dominant gram-negative genera, including Prevotera, Neisseria, and Hemophilus, the relative abundance of bacteria was significantly lower in strongly acidic GF than in saliva. By contrast, in gram-positive genera such as Streptococcus, Roscia, and actinomycetes, the relative abundance of the bacteria was significantly higher in strong acidity GF than in saliva. Next, the abundance of gram-negative and positive genera were compared between weak acidity GF and saliva. However, in either gram-negative genera or gram-positive genera, the relative abundance was almost the same between weakly acidic GF and saliva. So these results suggested that the bacteria migrated from the oral cavity are not killed in the stomach, but still alive because the acidity in the stomach is very low. Based on these the analysis, we calculated the ratio of gram-negative bacteria to the full bacteria in saliva and gastric fluid, and shown in this bar chart. When compared between weakly acidic GF and saliva, the relative abundance of gram-negative bacteria was almost the same between them. On the other hand, when compared between strongly acidic GF and saliva, the relative abundance of gram-negative bacteria was significantly less in strongly acidic GF than in the saliva. These results again suggested that the bacteria migrated from the oral cavity, avoided being killed in the stomach with weak acidity. And this is one of the main mechanisms why LPS activity was high in the weakly acidic GF. We also examined the relation between pH value and the bacterial cell number in the gastric fluid by culturing method. The log cell number was 7 in the weakly acidic GF with pH 5. And the log cell number was 4 in the strongly acidic GF with pH 1.5. Therefore, the cell number was 1,000 times higher in weakly acidic GF than in the strongly acidic GF. By these mechanisms, that is, increase in the ratio and the cell number of gram-negative bacteria causes high LPS activity in the gastric fluid with low acidity even after H. pylori eradication. These bacteria are Lactobacillus gasseri OL 2716 and is abbreviated to LG21. The properties of LG21 strain are firstly high resistance to acidity, secondly our ability to bind to the gastric mucosa, thirdly a lot of lactic acid production. Therefore, LG21 is a suitable probiotic strain that can be used for the gastroduodenal diseases, including H. pylori infection. This video shows the suppression of H. pylori by probiotic strain LG21. This is H. pylori using flagella, and these are Lactobacillus gasseri OL 2716 LG21. The LG21 is growing and expanding, and these are H. pylori. H. pylori is already almost dead and become coccoid form. And these are the growing and expanding LG21. And finally, H. pylori become coccoid and burst and show bacteriolysis with burst from like, okay. So finally, I will show the effect of LG21 administration on the pH and LPS activity in the gastric fluid. All the 10 of the subjects had successfully eradicated H. pylori, but still suffered from atrophic gastritis. And the pH value and LPS activity in the gastric fluid obtained from them were more than 3 and 10 enzyme units respectively. Then they had 1 billion of LG21 in yogurt every day for 3 months. After LG21 treatment, the pH value decreased in 8 out of 10 subjects. Interestingly, the LPS activity also disappeared or markedly decreased. On the other hand, in subject F80, H39, the pH value did not decrease after LG21 treatment. Of note was that the LPS activity did not change either in those 2 subjects. So this result again demonstrated cross correlation between pH value and LPS activity in the gastric fluid. And by those mechanisms or by this result, LG21 strain restore the acidity and decrease LPS activity in the stomach with low acidity even after H. pylori eradication. By these mechanisms, LG21 may improve mucosal inflammation in atrophic gastritis with low acidity even after H. pylori eradication. So far, our study indicated low acidity is a crucial factor in the development of mucosal inflammation. Also, low acidity has been suggested to be involved in the development of gastric cancer. This study titled "The Risk of Stomach Cancer in Patients with Gastric or Duodenal ulcer Diseases" was published in New England Journal of Medicine in 1996. In this study, the follow-up of gastric ulcer patients more than 20 years, the standardized incidence ratio of gastric cancer was higher than expected. On the other hand, in the follow-up of duodenal ulcer patients more than 20 years, the incidence ratio of gastric cancer was significantly less than expected. Therefore, they concluded that there appears to be factors associated with duodenal ulcer disease that protect against gastric cancer. So one of the main mechanisms how duodenal ulcer, how gastric cancer is prevented in duodenal ulcer patient may be based on high acid output frequently observed in the duodenal ulcer patient. So if the gastric acidity prevent gastric cancer, shortage of gastric acid, on the contrary, will accelerate the development of gastric cancer. So shortage or low acidity is caused usually long-time use of anti-acid agent, proton pump inhibitor, and atrophic gastritis. Actually, in the study reported by Chen et al. In 2017, the title of their study was "Long-term proton pump inhibitors and risk of gastric cancer development after treatment for Helicobacter pylori." In their study, the objective was to determine the association between proton pump inhibitor use and gastric cancer among H. pylori infected subjects who had received H. pylori eradication therapy. As a result, among the about 64,000 eligible subjects, 0.24% developed gastric cancer during a median follow-up of 7.6 years. And the PPI's use was associated with increased gastric cancer risk. Its hazard ratio was 2.44. So they concluded that long-term use of PPIs was still associated with increased gastric cancer risk in subjects even after H. pylori eradication. So this is a conclusion of my presentation. Firstly, a high LPS activity was found in the gastric fluid with weak acidity, probably due to the migration of gram-negative bacteria from the oral cavity to the stomach without being killed by strong gastric acid. Such LPS may continue to induce gastric mucosal inflammation and accelerate neoplastic progression in the weak acidity stomach, even after the eradication of H. pylori. Probiotic strain LG21 significantly decreased LPS activity in the gastric fluid, probably due to the suppression of gram-negative bacteria by lactic acid secretion. So I finished my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Koga. And you concluded lots of new ideas, as well, and the LPS story, as well as the LG21. It's a great role of LG21 for the suppression of GNB by lactic acid secretion. So now this lecture is open for discussion. Is there any comment and discussion? お願いします。
お手ある。
Thank you very much for a nice talk. Ken Sugano from Japan. First, I'd like to confirm the LPS activity means it's a limitless test measurement or any other modalities you use. For example, in our study, we utilize the epithelial cell secretion of inflammatory cytokine as an LPS activities measure. So what kind of measures did you use for estimating the activity?
Okay, for measurement of LPS activity in the gastric fluid, we used two kind of LPS assay kits. One kit use the recombinant factor C, and another kit is use the original Limulus amoebocyte lysate, and both measuring kit indicated almost the same result.
So it's a rather quantitative estimate of LPS rather than actual activities.
Yes.
Okay, then I understand your presented data, because LPS has a great difference in evoking inflammatory cytokine release, depending upon their lipid A structure.
So my assay was about activity, not the LPS molecule, the amount of LPS molecule, but the activity.
Actually, it may be different in terms of the evoking epithelial inflammation or macrophage inflammation. So how the correlation between those protein C dependent assay and also the inflammatory cytokine release from macrophage, for example.
Yeah, exactly. My data just show the activity using original factor C linkage. So I'm not sure it is correlated with macrophage activating ability or some biological activity. Just the in the factor C aspect.
And may I allow me a second?
Yes, please.
In our experiment, LPS, even if added in higher doses, do not cause epithelial cell, barrier disruption. Although it evoked the IL-8 secretion from the epithelial cells. So LPS per se is not acting through disrupting the epithelial barriers. You need a viable live bacteria to disrupt the epithelial barriers, just like Helicobacter pylori or Neisseria, as I talked in my presentation. But after barrier disruption, the shedded LPS might get into the subepithelial layer and then evoked a very potent pro-inflammatory cytokine release from macrophage or other inflammatory cells residing in the submucosa. What is your idea about this?
A very sharp indication. But regarding such effect of LPS on the permeability of the mucosa, we have not yet analyzed. So I hope I'll be able to answer next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there any comment? Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for excellent lecture, Dr. Koga. So I'm Tochio from Fujita Health University. So I have one question, one essential question. So you have performed a lot of clinical study about using LG21. So why do you focus on LG21? So please, could you tell me your secret information?
So your question, your comment is why focus only on LG21? Why you don't focus the other probiotic strengths? Very difficult. It's very difficult to answer. But I'm only much to Meiji. But actually, I myself produced, developed this LG20 strain. So I have much love to LG20. That's the reason for why I focus on LG21.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to take LG21 starting tomorrow. Thank you.
So another question from Professor Sugano. No question. Comment.
LG35 is acid resistant. 21 is relatively acid resistant and survive in the stomach. That's one thing. And the second is probably, I guess, but the secondly, for example, bifidobacterium are anaerobics that require anaerobic conditions, which won't survive very well with the epithelial cell culture system, because epithelial cell will die in that anaerobic conditions. And in aerobic conditions, bifidobacterium won't survive. So it's not suitable for my type of work. That's another thing, maybe.
Yeah.
And Faecalibacterium is the similar, strain, which is another probiotics. So there are several reasons. probably Professor Koga focused on lactobacillus.
Right.
Yes. Perfect answer.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Perfect answer. Perfect support. Is there any? So I have one question in terms of your lovely LG21, and you previously you conducted a clinical trial in the Chiang Mai, the LG21, including the cheese stick, and the preventive effect of H. pylori infection in the small children. Yeah. So, is this okay for the prevention of the H. pylori infection in the very, very infant?
So,
yeah.
Okay, so it was a study about 10 years ago?
Yes, yes.
So actually, in that study, we compared about 100 the subjects with LG21 cheese, and another about 100 subjects, only the cheese without LG21. And we observed 1 year. Actually, they took a piece of cheese once a day for 1 year. And as a result, the infection ratio 1 year later, infection, the first infection is about 50%, about 50% in LG21 treated group compared with no LG21 group. But the number was too small to get statistical analysis. And also there was some troubles, so we didn't continue that project. So now that's all.
Thank you very much. So we are very interested in that result, and I think you had better gain for the more big clinical trial for the Southeast Asia. No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kind comment.
Is there any comment? Another comment? Okay, thank you very much, Professor Koga, for the nice presentation.